Today's webinar, we are looking specifically at your provider accounts. So it may be that this is the first time that you've accessed it. It may be that you're very familiar with it, but there are bits that you're just not 100% sure on how to use if you're using it to its full potential. Before we start on the actual provider accounts, I just want to highlight our provider and course staff area. So in this area, there's one for England, there's one for Cymru, and in both you have a huge collection of resources. Anything that you need, you can probably find there as a first port of call. So we'll start off by quickly visiting, we'll take the England one as our sort of example one to begin with. So the provider and course staff area, in here you can find access to the people who work specifically for Mountain Training England with regards to your executive officer, development officer, technical officer, and then myself, who will do administration support. So if you are having trouble trying to get a course onto the system, it may be that if it's a technical question in regards to the computer, I may well be able to answer that one. Alongside the four of us, you also have resources that are available throughout. First of all, your provider agreements, you have your quality manuals, you have information on all of the schemes that are run through Mountain Training England. You've got a collection of resources, you've got CMS and course reporting, which we'll come back to in our second and third webinar. So all of this is here. This is an area you can always come back to whenever you need to. So that's your provider and course staff area. If we then go on to accessing your provider accounts. So once you've been made a provider, you will have access to an additional section on your CMS account. So it's linked to your personal account. There are two ways that you can access it. The first is through your personal accounts providers tab. So that's this one here. The second is through the menu bar at the top of the page. So next to where you'd normally find your username on your personal accounts. So we are going to go through the process of that now. So I'll do it with my accounts. So as you can see, here I am. Either you can go up to, like I said before, where your username is at the top corner. And if you scroll down, there will be my providers there. So you can click on that one and that'll take you to your provider accounts. If you're attached to more than one provider, it'll give you a list of which one it is that you might actually want to be going to. So I, for example, am with Cowboy Adventures, which is a fictitious provider that we use for testing. I'm also with the Mountain Training England provider account, so that's the one that we use for historical course reporting and things like that. So it's an admin thing, basically. So the other way that you can do it, so if I now go back to my account, the other way that I can do this is through the providers tab here. So if you click on it there, it'll take you to your list of providers, and it also gives you a little bit more information. So it says whether you're a manager or whether you're just a staff member. So managers have a little bit more responsibility with regards to maintaining the account than a staff member would have. We'll go over that in a moment. So for now, I'm going to go into Cowboy Adventures. So that's the one I'm a manager for. So if we just go back to the PowerPoint for a second. So in your provider account, there are a number of tabs. As a manager, you will see all of the tabs that are on this image here. As a staff member, you'll see slightly fewer of these and you'll have less rights within them. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to go through each of these tabs in turn, possibly not in order, and discuss them, talk to you about how you can use them either as a manager or as a staff member. So here I am in my provider account. So I'm currently working within the Cowboy Adventures. So I'm a manager for this account, which means that on that front details page, your name will come up as one of the managers. Alongside that, you will also see we have the information that the general public would also be able to see. So the contact details, how to get hold of us, telephone numbers, our email address, and there are other things as well that they'd be able to see, like your website and so on. As a manager, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see that you're able to edit this information. What I would say is anything that has a red star is essential and it has to be there. Now, the actual provider, its name itself, I would recommend that you never actually change. If you are planning on changing the name of your provider account, please do get in contact with us at Mountain Training. This is something that we do need to record to the board of directors, and it is something that we would prefer that you didn't change, that we change for you. Provider name is there. We then have the email that's attached to that provider account. So any contact, any correspondence from a candidate or potential candidate will come through that email address. That is the one that will show on the Mountain Training website. So an administrator can be added there. So it may be that if you're a one-person thing, that you are everything within your business, that administrator would be yourself. However, if you're working for a large company, it may be the case that the administrator is a member of the admin team within an office, for example. So whoever that is, the name would go there, and that's the person who would be the contact for ourselves, and as well it would be a contact for the general public. So daytime telephone number, that one is the essential one. You can then add multiple phone numbers. If you still have a fax machine and use it, there is an option for fax machine. There is also an area there where you can link to your website. So if you feel that you want to include this information, you can, although at the moment it's not a necessary item. It is something that in the future may be more relevant, which means as well that you can ignore these. So at the moment, we are not able to accept online course payments. So the most important thing next is here. So your profile picture. So as a provider, you are able to put a profile picture on. Most providers tend to put a logo, or they'll put a really friendly picture of themselves. Having a profile picture is very, very much beneficial, because when a course is put onto the system, your profile picture will be on what the public can see. So if I take you now to the main website, if you were to search for a course, so if I go see all courses, we'll see what's on at the moment. There are quite a few. So you can see here now, people who have their logos on their provider account, they're nice and clear. If you don't have your logo, it just comes up as a grey blob. And scrolling through courses and a general pen member of the public, it's going to look more interesting to be able to see a logo than to see an empty box. So I'd say from the outset, just make sure that you are showing everything you possibly can on your provider account. So your profile picture would be added here. So you can take an image, you can browse through any images that are on your computer, and then you can upload them here. Please do remember to press save. It may be that it doesn't show up straight away, in which case I'd recommend that you do refresh your internet browser and it should then appear. The next section, privacy settings, you don't need to change anything there. The location, so your location will already have been set for you when I create the provider account in the first place. Underneath, you've then got a nice big space where you can add information about yourself. It's formattable, so you're able to make it as you would like it to appear. For example, here we've just said this is a test account. It's not one that's actually used in the real world. But all of your information there, you could have links to your website, you could have a little bit of information about yourselves. You can add links, you can also insert images. Everything that you do on this page, when you're done, please remember to save. And that way you don't lose any work that you have been doing on it. So that's the details page. The next one is your address page. Again, a manager, you're able to edit this. You can go in, you can set your address. Anything again with a red star, you do need to actually enter. Anything without a red star, you don't. So if your address is there, press save. There we go. And you're up to date there as well. So the next thing that I'd ask you to go to is your status. So I know I'm jumping a few here. So the status tells you what courses you are able to provide as a course provider. So once you go into your course provider account for the first time, I would recommend this is one of the first things you look at to make sure that everything that you've been given approval for is actually on here and is correct. Cowboy Adventures, being fictitious, are able to offer a number of different courses, and they're all visible there. Also, will tell you the date at which you were given that approval. So then I'm going to go to your staff. So I know we've jumped a few, we're now going back. So we come onto the staff tab. So under the staff tab, you'll find a list of all of the course directors or administrators that have been linked to the provider account. So as a new provider, you may find that this is a very, very short list and that you actually need to add additional people to your provider account. So this is done through this button here, the Add Staff Member. Now I would recommend that you use a person's candidate ID. If I show you quickly, if you were just to enter a person's name, so for example Mark Walker, what will happen is you will end up with a very, very long list of people. Right, so as you can see, I've ended up with a number of Mark Walkers. So there's 3 pages potentially of Mark Walkers that I'd need to go through to find the one who's correct. However, if I was to use a candidate ID, so for example now if I use a fictitious person whose name is Ivana, so it will search the system specifically for that candidate ID and should find only that person. So here we have Ivana. We have a couple of options here now. So if this person is going to be a manager, that means that they have the additional administration rights on the CMS system. You'd tick this little button here, which would make them a manager. You would then add. So literally just press add, and they will be added to your staff list. So if I was to scroll down now, hopefully I should find her somewhere near the bottom of the list. There we go, there's Ivana. I also added her as a manager, so it should be the case that she is now on the management list too. So there we have Ivana. Adding additional staff members, it's just that process through and through. It may be the case that if that person, it's the first time they've been added as a director anywhere, that they will actually have to go through the process of approving an email. So it will be that they have been invited and they will get an email that you need to ask them then to follow the link on the email to accept becoming someone on your particular provider account. So that's worth just being aware of just in case. The next one I'm going to go to, I'm going to leave candidates for a moment and I'm going to go to courses. So this is where we would go to add courses onto the system. I'm going to do a whole separate webinar on this particular process. So don't worry too much about this today. This will be on the second webinar. The same goes for course reports. So this is where you would produce your course reports. Again, I'm going to do a separate webinar about this, so this will be on webinar 3. Candidates is linked to both of those too, so I will discuss that there. But here you can see you will have a list of your candidates. The next thing that I'm going to ask you to look at is the resources tab. So under the resources tab, you have a link to the provider and course staff area and a copy of the provider agreements. So when you first become a provider, you will need to read through the provider agreement, confirm that you've read it and that you agree with it. We ask you to tick this box here. You then have agreed with the terms and conditions in the provider agreements. So the provider agreement is also here in the provider and course staff area. So it's the first tab at the top and it's downloadable as a PDF. Annual fees. So each year there are annual fees of 125 at present. However, as you can see, Cowboy Adventures do not pay their bills. So this just goes to show what it would look like if you have a bill outstanding. It will be read, it will be saying that the next payment required is now. Initial rate of 125 as it stands at present is paying your provider agreement. You will then have a £20 per course director fee on top. So if you are the only person linked to your provider account, it will only be the 125 because you will always have the first course director within that price. Any additional staff members, so course directors or course tutors, you will be charged an additional £20 for that person to be able to run courses through your provider account. If they are administrators, then that person won't be paid for. So that person doesn't run a course as a course director or tutor, therefore they do not need to be paid for. That's your annual fees. Your course fees, so this applies for leadership schemes only. So if you are running only the tutor schemes, the Hill Mountain Skills or the Rock Skills schemes, you won't at present be paying course fees. If you're running a leadership scheme, the course fees are like the equivalent to the old sticker charge. So they are basically a fee that will be charged for each successful candidates going through a course. So for example, if you have 6 people on a training course, they all complete the training course, you would be paying for 6 candidates. If you had an assessment where you had, for example, 4 candidates, 2 of which passed, 2 of which were deferred, you would pay for the 2 passes. The deferrals would then be paid later by the provider that does their reassessment should they be successful on that. So we have that one there. Emails, don't worry too much about it. It's set up correct. There is nothing you need to do with that. Payment the same. There is nothing that needs to be done there. Moderation, so we do come out as part of the quality assurance process, and you will have a report produced by your moderator. That report will be found here. So should you at any point need to have a look at your moderation reports, if you've got action points that you need to work on, or if you're just interested to know how you're progressing over time, or wanting to pick up on positive points that have come through from your moderation, they're all going to be available under this particular tab. We have been through now each of the main points here. There are a few obviously you don't need to worry about at all. Right, so this is looking at the provider account as a manager. What I'm going to do quickly now is I'm going to swap provider accounts to the Mountain Training England account, because under this one I'm not a manager. So for this one, you can see straight away I can't see as many different things. If I just quickly go back to the Cowboy Adventures, you can see all of the tabs available there. Under Mountain Training England, if I click back here, you can see there are a number that are missing. It's also the case that I can't edit a number of these. So as a course director or a tutor, as a staff member, I can see the details, I can see the address. I can't edit either of those two things. The staff list, again, I can see, but I can't edit. So this has got a shorter staff list because this is a Mountain Training England area. I can see courses, and so as a staff member, I can create courses. I can see course reports. So these are historical course reports that are on this particular account. I can see the status, so I can know what this provider will offer. I can see annual fees and course fees. So as you can see here, course fees are up to date. I can also see annual fees. As a staff member, I cannot pay these. However, as a manager, if I was to look at the annual fees again for Cowboy Adventures, I am able to make payments. So just to summarize all of that information in one easy place. So in the provider account, the managers have a lot more editing that they're able to do. The staff members they can see a number of things, but they can't edit as much. So if you want to have a look at any of the slides in this PowerPoint, the PowerPoint is on the website alongside this webinar. So if you're wanting to go to any of these pages, or if you're needing to follow any of the links, they are available on there. Next time round, what we'll be looking at is creating a course. So it's a step-by-step guide to work your way through creating a course and adding things to that course. In the meantime, should you need it, the provider and course staff area is accessible through these links. So again, if you're wanting to follow the links, use the PowerPoint. And I've put together a little action plan just to make sure you get familiar with your provider account and that you're checking that everything is up to date on there. A few simple steps, things that you can check now. So first of all, go to your account, have a look at it. Is the provider name correct? I've created these accounts. It may be that I haven't quite recorded the information in exactly the same way as you would like it to be recorded. So it may be that you have capitalization that's different to mine or whatever. If you need to change the provider name, please do get back in touch with the Mountain Training Office because we'll need to also update this information on our system. Have a go updating your logo, add that onto your system. Make sure that if your administrator isn't the person that you put in your original application, that you update the name of your administrator. Add any telephone, email, contact details, your web address. Check the address tab and make sure that that's correct. Once your address is up to date, go to the provider agreement in the provider and course staff area, read through that, and then if you can tick the approval in the resources tab of your provider accounts. Next step, check that you have the correct status for your provider approvals. If you've approvals that aren't on the system, get in touch with us and we can check whether that's needing to be updated for you. And then make sure you have the correct staff linked to your accounts. If you send individuals a staff request, it may be worth you getting in contact with them separately and letting them know that that request will be there in their email accounts and asking them to follow the link on the email so that they do get linked up. It's very easy to finish the first step, and if they're not aware of it, it may be a number of weeks or even months before they need to use the accounts, and trawling through months of emails can be difficult for people. So it's worth just making sure that it gets done straight away. So there you go, there's an action plan. Once you're happy that you've got yourself worked around your provider account and all of these things are up to date, you're ready to put on your first course. So if you want to have a look at the second webinar in the series, it'll go through the process of adding a course onto the system. I hope this has been useful. So if you need to get in touch with us, our contact details are on the provider and course staff area for both Mountain Training England and Mountain Training Cymru. If you're wanting to get there quickly, another little tip is if you go to the main Mountain Training website, if you're wanting to get to the provider and course staff area quickly, what you can do is just add either an England, if you're an England provider, or a Cymru to the URL at the top of the page and it will take you straight there. So here's the Mountain Training England one. So if you add Cymru to the top of the page, it will take you to the Mountain Training Cymru provider and course staff area, which have a number of resources, including resources through the medium of Welsh. I hope this information has been very useful to you. If you have any questions, please do get in touch. And if not, have fun with your provider account. I'll speak to you again in the second webinar where we will look at creating courses. Thank you very much.